Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Self-Directed Education weekly call. This is our call number 16. I'm here with Angela Young, my co-admin, and we have a guest here today, Sam. So hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
We're back.
Yay, we're back. Thank you for joining us. And this is just kind of a free-for-all to talk about self-directed education, which we also call unschooling. We won't go through like our whole intros, but I'll just give a little update on me, just so you guys know. It's pretty much summer here. I'm in Massachusetts. Yay, it's warm. And we just came back from a really awesome camping trip in Maine, which was super fun and tons of homeschoolers. And we'll be camping. We just put our stuff in storage a couple weeks ago. So now we are camping full time, maybe staying with friends and family in between. So we are world schooling. We have been traveling and learning that way, but now we're like full time on the road, which is exciting and scary all at the same time. So yeah, we're just kind of winging it. We do plan to do like a big long trip around the United States, but we don't have any of that set in stone. So if anyone has ideas for us or locations, feel free to reach out. Places that we could camp or meet up with other unschoolers or world schoolers is really our dream. So we are open and just looking at this calendar and ready to have some fun and meet some cool people, and especially like-minded people. So yeah, that's what's up for us for summer. So hey.
Yay. Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. So exciting. I'm happy for your camping trip too. I want to know how that went. But yeah, for us, it's the same. Hi. Summer has hit. And so, for those who, haven't watched this before, so we're an unschooling family as well, but my kids actually attend a Sudbury school or a school. Okay. Hi. You want to say something? If people aren't familiar with what those schools are like, it's basically a place where kids can do what they want and focus on what speaks to their heart within boundaries and safety and stuff like that. But for the most part, they don't have to choose between subjects or anything. They can really do what they're interested in. I'm also a staff person at that school. But right now they do go off of the regular school schedule. So we're not meeting in person with all the students anymore. Now we are home for the summer. Also, I guess like by title, I'm a conscious parenting guide too. And so I guess I've just been like sort of fine tuning my programs for the summer, because I do have a lot more time now that I'm not working. So I'm excited to speak with more people who are super excited about self-directed education, conscious parenting, and stuff like that. You know what? Inside the group, I made a post, I think it was last week or the week before, saying, hey, if anyone has questions that they would like answered about unschooling, self-directed education, go ahead and ask below, and we can answer them in this video. So I know that Sam, who's joining us today, has a couple questions, but we also got some questions on that post as well. And so I'm just really excited to dive into answering those from our perspectives. So I'm wondering, oh yeah, he feels it. So I'm wondering, Sam, since you're present with us now, maybe we just open it up for you and let you ask the questions first.
Yeah, I'll be happy to. My first question is, because I'm very new to the self-directed education sort of approach, what are the sort of, in terms of screen time, I'm very interested in how much screen time is, I know it's self-directed, but I don't want to say allowed, but I don't know what other word to use. So in terms of screen time, what would be, I suppose, recommended?
I think that's such an awesome question, Sam. That's like the $1,000,000 question. I would say that is probably one of the top questions of self-directed and unschooling. And I'll go first if that's okay, Angela. Geez. So once you go to self-directed or unschooling, I think that if you were in the radical unschooling category, the answer would be as much as the child wants, and that would be it. I don't consider myself a radical unschooler. I do consider us unschoolers, but I wouldn't say radical. So for me and my family, and I noticed this with a good amount of unschoolers, it's just when it comes to screen time, it's just about, we don't personally in my home or motorhome, but with us, I don't have hard times or hours or limits. I don't have her device shut off after a certain amount of time. We just kind of go with the flow of the day, because our days look different. Some days we have all day, we're out all day. Like, for example, we were just on a homeschool camping trip, and most of the homeschoolers came Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So for 4 days, I don't think she did any screen time because we were just tubing and lighting fires and having s'mores. And, sometimes we do super fun, exciting things that are the whole day, but most days we don't. Most days we might have a couple hours of errands or gatherings. And then for me personally, we have some boundaries or agreements. So I do ask that my daughter helps with mealtime. I do ask that we always have our meals mindfully. So we don't do electronics or TV while we eat or while we clean up. Sometimes we'll put some music on. So I think it's kind of a personal, when it comes to unschooling, there's not one rule of thumb. It's kind of what works for your family. Yeah, I'm sure, Angela, you have much more to add, but I wish I could just say 2 hours and then you could have your answer and you could go with it. But it's really very specific to each family. Some families may say you can play video games all night, all day. And then other unschoolers may say, lights out at 10 or something like that. So it's really up to the family.
Yeah, I second that.
Thank you.
This is probably the like one of the most popular questions, and there isn't really an answer. I think that a big part of unschooling is going through our own technophobia deschooling, I guess, or deconditioning, and realizing that technology offers so much learning, but also being attuned or present to like what container fits your life really well. So for me, our process of electronics started with when we first got into unschooling, we had like no limits. So hold on one second. My daughter's talking in the background. Hey, Scarlett, can you scoot over just a little bit? Because I can hear you. She's playing a game. Speaking of electronics, she's playing a computer Minecraft with her friends.
Yeah, because they look.
Okay. Yeah. So anyways, in the beginning, like we did try out the whole like no limits thing. And I would say even to this day, we don't have a lot of limits. It's just that when we first tried that out, it was cool to like look at all of my limiting beliefs around technology and to do all the inner work myself, like being uncomfortable and seeing where that all stemmed from. And then after a while, after the fun of that was sort of like ran its course or whatever, it was obvious that, oh, hey, we actually desire some like face-to-face connection. Hey, Scarlett, babe, I can hear you. What ends up happening is I can't focus because I hear you talking. Thanks, babe. So what was I saying? Yeah, it was like a natural thing. It wasn't like what we're doing this because we should be doing this. It was like, oh, I actually want to connect with you. So can we have a discussion around this? And like Andrea said, it wasn't necessarily like imposing a boundary onto my kids over like, oh, hey, we should stop doing electronics now. And this is mom telling you that we should do this. It was like, let's have a family discussion. Do you guys think that it's best if we have electronics during mealtime? Do you think that maybe it's also best for families to be able to connect once in a while and talk face to face? And electronics.
Your volume went down a little bit, Angela. I wonder if it's just me or.
Ooh, interesting. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
You know what it was? I covered it with my finger. Sorry that
I thought it was something to do with me, but I thought it was my my headphones or something. But yeah, you did go a bit quiet then. Sorry.
Sorry. You know what? I think I covered it with my pinky finger. I like shifted with the positioning of my hand. I apologize if there's so many moving parts. I have a little 1.5-year-old and my 7-year-old here. So. But hey, a day in the life of a mom. But yeah, so the way that looked, okay, I'm a huge fan of the family meeting. So that means when we are feeling a certain way, or we feel like we want to like implement something or create a boundary, whatever it is, it's like we all do it together for the most part. There's gonna be times when there are non-negotiable things, but I think even those things can be discussed. And typically when kids are given like ample amounts of freedom, they don't feel overly controlled, they're pretty understanding. Like they have the ability to really like hear you and be heard. You know, that's part of hearing someone else, is being heard as well. And so that family meeting, there's like a process to it. There's like a breakdown of, you know, how you do a family meeting, but it's basically like bringing up an issue, really deeply listening to your child, like holding total open space for them, not rebutting anything, even if you don't fully agree or you don't think it's logical, just like giving them the space to air it out. And then coming afterwards with your perspectives and what you think and what you like the stuff, without being like accusatory or anything like that, or being personal. And then coming together and trying to find solutions together, like asking questions. How do you think we can solve this? Anyways, long story short, as this pertains to electronics, what we decided is that like pretty much Monday through Friday is basically what it looks like. At the end of the day, around dinner time, we do just put the electronics away and we all hang out and have dinner. And then afterwards hang out as a family. Oh my gosh. And I actually haven't shared this because it's something, maybe I have, but this is something new that I tried out and it seems to stick, is our family share nights, where we each like get a night of the week to bring something to the family, whether it's like a TV show or an art project or a game. Like my daughter taught us all how to draw these drawings that she wanted to do, or a book, whatever it might be. And we all switch off, and it was just a really cool way to like find out what my kids are really interested in and be present with them, and just see like what they're learning. But also, like, I have to admit, sometimes I'm like, okay, you guys have so much freedom. You do a lot. It was like, you do a lot of like looking into the outside world and getting influence from all different things, which I don't think it's a bad thing. And I've done a lot of work on my own fear around that. It's just that I also want to like share some of the things that I think are awesome naturally. So this was like a really cool way for everyone to be heard and for kids to like absorb, you know, and like be interested kind of in what you're interested in, because I think everyone is just held space for. So it's, makes sense in that way. Anyhow, I don't think there's an answer to how much electronics. Long story short, it's like an experimentation and staying present and then working it out as a family. So yeah.
Thank you. Thanks very much for that.
Yeah. Did you have any other questions that come to mind?
Nothing that comes to mind at the moment. I may jump in if there's something that springs to mind while you're chatting, if that's okay.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. I was thinking, let me think back to the questions that were asked on Facebook. So, one of the questions was, do you do you, in unschooling, do you tailor, like, do you take what your child is interested in and then create a lesson off of it? Is that how you unschool? That was one of the questions. So I'm wondering maybe if Andrea, if you have anything to say on that one, anything that comes to mind.
Yeah. So let's see. I'm just trying to think about something that my daughter said she was interested in. You know, at one point she said that she was interested in gymnastics. So what I do, you know, we started to look around at different organizations that offer it, and then just see if there was one that was a good fit. We started to look into that like before COVID. Actually, no, we did some gymnastics at the YMCA. We did a homeschool program. I signed up for like a series. I think it was 6 weeks, and we did that and we liked it. And then I think we signed up for one more series and she liked it. And then she didn't want to do it anymore. So we stopped that. So usually what I do, you know, if she's interested in something, a lot of times she'll be interested and we just Siri it. You know, we just Google it, we Siri it. A lot of times we're just real time and I can get the questions answered. And usually she's satisfied. When she's done, then we're good. So yeah, and then if it's something like a program, or something that we can sign up for in the community, then I'll look around, I'll ask the homeschool, I'll ask my local homeschool groups if anyone knows a program. She hasn't really asked for much direct instruction, but what I also do, just going the other way around, when I go to our local homeschooling groups, I'll say, there's a Legoland day, there's an art class, there's messy makers, there's a camping trip, like what of this interests you? So usually, because there's a lot of activities in my area, and we've been homeschooling for a few years now, so we're in a lot of the groups. So usually I just run by her what's happening to see if she's interested in participating in any of those classes or field trips. But if she asks me specifically to learn about something, usually honestly, we just Google it and she's satisfied within just a couple minutes. We usually just do it real time. But of course we would use all the resources available. We could go to the library. I could ask around for a class. There really hasn't been a lot that she asked me that she asked me to help her learn about. Usually she's doing it herself, to be quite honest.
Yeah, same here. So I think traditionally, like, unschooling is not about taking a child's interest and turning it into a lesson, unless the kid like wants that and they're like, hey, I want to take a class, I want to take a course on this. But typically I've found with my kids and also other students at school is that a lot of childhood, and I don't know if it's brain development or just because you're like getting used to life, and everything that life has to offer, it's a lot of dabbling. It's a lot of like, oh, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You just kind of bounce around and find out, like, what am I really interested in? I've also found, I think that my kids' interests are enough in and of themselves. Like, it's almost like adding a course or adding a lesson onto that would be like just superfluous. It's like not really needed. It's like the interest is enough in and of itself. The child is pretty intuitive and gets what they need from the interest. Like, they're looking for certain information. They get what is relevant to what they're wanting. And that's how it actually sticks. That's how the learning actually sticks. Anything that you add on top, it starts to get into like not being as relevant. And we all know what that feels like when you're trying to memorize stuff that doesn't even like mean anything to you. The learning isn't deep. It isn't like whole world learning. It's like memorizing facts that then aren't really applicable and you forget in a week. So yeah, I guess to answer the question is, no, I don't really tailor interest into classes unless the child wants it. And I don't, I think that at first, when you first start unschooling, you might have a little bit of like fear or trepidation because it's like a child typically needs to like deschool. So it takes a little bit of time for them to really perhaps dive into a myriad of stuff. Maybe they do gaming a lot at first or something like that, because they're really like trying to get in touch with that inspiration again, you know, and just find out who they are. So there might be a little more, I don't know, like seeming need to be like, oh, we should do something. Like maybe I should create a lesson here or do something there. And it's not that you can't. Like everything's just learning. Everything's just finding out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. I don't think you can really mess it up. But from my experience, because I actually have at some point, you know, prior, I did fill some time with some like book learning and little lessons. And over time, I just realized, oh, wait a minute, like we didn't need that. It was fine. It was fine the way it was. So yeah.
Okay,
Awesome.
sorry, I have questions.
Yes.
Sorry to jump in. How do you explain to people what you're doing? Like, you know, like family members and friends and stuff, when they ask, like, what are your kids doing? You know, when their kids are in school, how do you sort of articulate it exactly what you're doing?
That's another super, super awesome, very common question. And it's, geez, I like to feel out. I'll take this one for, so what I do, well, in the beginning, I was just so excited about child-led education that I started off just going into like a spiel and like, oh my God, this is so awesome. And this is the future of education. And it's so much, you know, that the lessons stick because the kids are so involved and it's so amazing. And people were like, it just depends. So I used to just start with a big spiel on how awesome it was. And most people were like, I don't know what you're talking about. You're gonna hurt your, like, this is gonna be bad. This is really bad. And your child is missing out, was basically usually what fear I got from other people. And I don't know if this is common for every unschooler, but typically the first thing that comes out when I try to explain it is, oh my God, your child is missing out. And they're not doing enough. So what I learned through years of child-led education and alternative education, and basically just doing something that's different from the norm, I don't really jump into a big explanation, or even I am still excited about it. And I do let that excitement shine through, but I don't try to explain it. And I don't try to defend it. And I don't engage much. If people, I just try to feel out people. So if I'm at a homeschool play date and they say, oh, what curriculum are you using? And I say, actually, we're unschoolers. And they say, oh yeah, I heard about that. Then I'll engage a little bit further. But if I'm talking to someone who's never heard of it, I usually don't get into it at all. And I just say something like, you know, my family, you know, my daughter and I, this is really working for us, but it's not for everyone. And a lot of times I'll just change the subject because the bottom line is it's a decision for you and your family. And it's not a decision. I mean, if you're close to grandparents, aunts, uncles, community, cousins, friends, and family, yeah. So if there's a caregiver involved that would actually need to be a part of the decision, then I would go into details with them. But for anyone that isn't a main caregiver or have any say in how you're doing it, I would just most of the time leave it really brief and change the subject.
Okay, because I'm not sure about in the US, but I'm in England, so I'm not sure how established self-directed learning is in this country. But I know there are a few sort of Sudbury schools and that in the US. But as far as I'm aware, there's only one in England. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether it's that well established in this country. But yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah.
But,
it's a big
yeah, I
it's
think
super
it is,
common.
yeah.
And I don't think even in the US, like there are some Sudbury schools, especially I think, like looking at the map, there was a lot on the East Coast, but even here, like it's rare to live by a Sudbury school. And a lot of people do it more like a homeschool thing, like an unschooling thing, because yeah, most are not privy to live close to a self-directed school. I think a lot of times it still comes off as like totally off the wall, you know, like what? But yeah, to me, that question, I'm always like, who's asking? It totally depends who's asking. Because if someone's coming with genuine curiosity and like wanting to know more, then man, I'll dive in. But if it's coming from someone, like you can tell it's coming from like criticism or like a wall, you know, then typically like with all grace, just like don't really engage with that. But yeah, I think in the beginning I was so excited and so passionate that it was just bubbling out of me. You know, everywhere I went, I was talking about self-directed education with people who didn't even have kids. So that was like, you couldn't help but hear about it. Now that, you know, I'm still just as passionate, but maybe like that new intrigue, whatever you call it, the romanticized period in the beginning is sort of worn down. It's like, I don't know. It's just not the same. Like I'm not really going to engage with everyone, just like Andrea said.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Because I'm still sort of researching as well. I'm reading all the books, and you know, I'm really into sort of Peter Gray, and his approach is the way he explains it in his books he explains it really well, and I've learned so much over the last sort of few weeks that because I only deregistered my children from traditional schooling just before Christmas, so like I said, I'm still really new to all this, and I think they suffered quite a bit of trauma, because it was like fitting a square peg into a round hole when it came to conventional schooling. They just didn't fit into the system, which is why I deregistered in the end, because the anxiety that they were experiencing was just too high, and it was having such a detrimental effect that I needed to find something different for them, and this is why I'm here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think that so many people share your story. That's definitely like so many people's story who come to unschooling. And I agree, like now that you put it that way, I see like it's not just about like who's asking or whatever. It's also like, okay, well, how can I explain this in a way that it just translates? So, I mean, Peter Gray does that magnificently, but I think the words that I use a lot of times are like self-directed education comes off just a little bit, I don't know, more professional, or it sounds more like it is something than unschooling can sound a little like unschooling. What is that? But self-directed education can be explained in ways that are really palpable to people, like, hey, you get to choose what you want to learn and you get to focus on what actually interests you. Stuff like that. Like, I feel like most people are like, oh, that'd be cool. You know, when you get into the nitty gritty, if you want to like go deep and you're like, well, actually, like my kids pretty much can do whatever they want. That sort of stuff is when it starts getting like really out of the box. So, yeah.
And I just wanted to add, Sam, that I do think that there are a lot of people, you know, in the UK that are doing unschooling or self-directed education, or it's also called democratic schooling over there. I think for you, if you're just kind of studying this, it might be best for you to focus your time on connecting with other homeschoolers and other unschoolers in your area. So, and even us online, like, I'm so glad you found us, because I feel like the first year or so, depending on where you come from, I think where you really want to be seeking your support from is experienced people, and homeschoolers that at least get like, okay, traditional just didn't work. So I think as for the people that don't, I mean, I think you still have so much to learn, and you're probably in more of a deschooling process. So rather than trying to explain the concept to someone who doesn't know anything, I think your energy is best spent seeking out community for you and your children, of people who get it, people who are at least already homeschooling, that can even understand unschooling, and deschooling. Because most homeschoolers are going to understand deschooling. Are you familiar with that process, Sam?
I am, yeah. I think we're definitely in the deschooling process still, I would say. We're definitely in the infancy of becoming sort of self-directed educators. So yeah, we're definitely in the beginning of our journey, I would say.
Yeah, so the deschooling concept is awesome. And if you do have people asking, you can say, traditional wasn't working for us, and I'm in the process of evaluating different strategies. Something kind of general like that might be good for people that just like don't really get it, and then if you do start to meet people that are unschoolers or even homeschoolers, then you can talk a little bit more, and ask them, well, what are you doing? What's working for your family? But I think you should just honor your time for your family to kind of recalibrate, because it's such a different mindset. You're going from being controlled and everything being pre-planned to going with the flow and being in the present moment. So it's a complete 180 in a lot of aspects. And I think that just takes time for the children and for you as the parent and the parent educator. So I think it's a really delicate, it can be a super fun time too, but I think it's just like a delicate kind of recalibration. And you have a right to take time to figure out your strategy. And it will take time for you and your children to get to a happy place. I love the idea of family meetings as well. I do that a lot with my daughter, and usually we like to just talk after a meal. I feel like is our happy place. Sometimes I used to try to get into things and then we would be hungry and it just wouldn't work. So I like to do, kind of family meetings, or big discussions after a meal. And then we just kind of get into it, like what's working, what's not working, what she wants, what I want. But I would make it more of kind of an internal thing between you and your children. And I think that when you are reaching out and connecting, I think that you would be best to reach out to more unschoolers and homeschoolers, and just, playing around with your local community and seeing what play dates and park days, because there's so much fun stuff happening. And once you're in the homeschool world, at least what I found was that we have so many friends in the homeschool world, and they're not all unschoolers. We have a couple unschool friends, but a lot of them, some use a religious curriculum, some use different styles of curriculum, and they're just great people and they get it. So it's not that our styles match exactly, but they get, oh, okay, we're not, we're learning what excites us rather than some book that was written 20 years ago that determined that this was the way to learn. Or someone just asked me that this week at our homeschool camping trip, are you teaching math the new way? And I was like, I don't even know the new way, and I don't really do much teaching. I'm just kind of like a support person. A lot of times my daughter just figures it out, and then sometimes I'll show her how to use the calculator, or we'll write out math just so she can see it visually. So yeah, that's my answer on that one.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. We actually had a question. I think it was revolving around math. I don't know if this was exactly the question, but I'll just reframe it for our conversation. But it was about, like, how do you know your child's not behind in math or something like that? Or do you keep track of like what they should, quote unquote, should be learning according to the age categorizations? And yeah, again, I think that this question comes from a mind of someone who is just delving into unschooling and just figuring out like, what should or shouldn't I do? And for me in the beginning, it was like throwing just everything out the window, and not paying attention to what kids should or should not be learning. For me, that stems from a core belief that what we need to learn, we will learn. Like life provides in that way, and that we can trust it. And this is actually a practice and really trusting and seeing how effortlessly and magically things like that manifest. So yeah, in fact, I think like we can really pay attention to how we feel about things. It's like, how does that make you feel when you're thinking that you need to impose certain curriculums or certain grade level academic information and stuff like that? Like a lot of times it creates a feeling of constriction, and it creates a feeling of stress and pressure, and then that gets projected onto our child. If we're not aware of it, it just gets projected and barfed right onto the child, and then they absorb that feeling. And for me, my practice has always been looking within and being like, okay, I really need to pay attention to how I'm feeling, and that's my indicator of like what's really true for me or what's not true for me. So whatever's bringing me stress, whatever's making me feel constricted, I get really curious about why it's making me feel constricted. And typically it's for like one of two reasons. The first one is I have a lot of limiting beliefs around whatever it is that I think I need to be doing, and I just need to like bring those into alignment perhaps. But the other end of that is actually that you're just completely uninspired, not relevant for you, and you do not need to be doing what you think you need to be doing. And I think when it comes to traditional schooling, that's typically the one that is relevant for us. So anyways, like I found that we can rest in comfort, we can rest in relaxation, we can really, that's actually how we get in touch with that part of us that guides us towards what is relevant. It actually takes a space of rest. And then from there, that's where inspiration comes in. And that is really or interest or curiosity or passion, any of those things. That's really the guiding tool for what is actually for you. Everything else, obligation, lies, totally lies. It's really sticky and really full of pressure, but it's lying.
Yeah, it just totally counteracts, doesn't it, what traditional schooling tells us that we should be doing. So it's definitely a process, I think, in making that transition from forced schooling to self-directed learning. It's just totally different ends of the spectrum, isn't it?
Oh yeah, totally. It's like we believed like a bunch of beliefs that that made us create institutions out of basically fear, I think, and then behave in a bunch of ways that were based out of fear. And we're sort of undoing that. We're rewiring that and getting back in touch with this much more natural way of living. It's really quite inspiring. Sam, do you know, because I'm sure that where you are and what you're experiencing is so relatable to so many people. I'm wondering if you have any like common challenges or fears and stuff that come up in your day-to-day experience now.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm actually in a place where I'm quite scared about what I'm doing right now, because how do you know it's working? You don't, do you? you don't know in advance that, you know, what you're doing is actually working. Whereas if you send your child to school, then they're with teachers that, you know, are giving them knowledge. Whereas with what we're doing now, it's just so alien to me at the moment, because I went through the school system myself, and to be honest, I didn't come out the other side with any qualifications at all, and yet I have 2 degrees now. So, and that was through my own passions and my own interests that I pursued those degrees, which is, you know, sort of sealed the deal for me, I think, really, in terms of what I'm doing now with my children. But I think if they weren't experiencing the anxieties that traditional schooling was giving to them, they'd be in school now as I would be back then. So it's just so different. What I'm doing now is just so different, and it scares me. I am actually quite fearful of what I'm doing right now, but I know that I'm doing the right thing at the same time.
Yeah, and therein is the unschooling in a box. Like, I feel like everyone relates to that. Like, yeah, it's not that, like, it's not like there's going to be no challenges when we unschool. It's just that the challenges change. So it's like the old way, it was really, you know, the challenges were, how do we get kids to sit down and shut up and learn and basically dictate what we want them to believe and repeat to us. And that's actually really hard to do. It's not an easy feat. Over a few generations, I think they've got it pretty down, but it still is really challenging. The challenges just changed. So now it's like, oh my gosh, I'm met with all of my fears. I'm met with all of my expectations and my biases and my inclination towards control, you know. We're met with all of those, and the work really is to wrestle with our own perspectives, you know. The difference is one of those challenges, one of those ways of being, like the old way of being, is totally uninspiring. It like kills your spirit. It makes you lose connection with your child, creates disconnect between teacher and student. And I'm not sure people are really even learning. And the new challenge, it totally brings you closer to who you are and builds connection. You know what I mean? Builds healthy relationship. And from my perspective, I think processing life, like processing our emotions, processing our experiences, mainly like interpersonal, social, spiritual learning is all that really matters. You know, the worldly life skills that we can learn for the most part are like simple is the wrong word. It's not that they're simple, it's just that they can be learned. Like when you're interested, they can be learned rather quickly. If you want to specialize in something, go for it. It's just that it's the other type of learning that is so intuitive, that is so it has to be done through experience. And to me, that's what unschooling is mainly in the early years for a lot of kids. It's like they're actually having the space to be able to be with what they're feeling, to listen. I don't know. And I think the world's got it backwards. I think that's all that really matters. So that sums it up.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
Yeah.
So we've got about 5 more minutes left. Sam, do you have like a final question or topic that we can cover in a few minutes?
Not that you could probably cover in a few minutes, I don't think.
Yeah.
And I'm very aware that it's like midnight where I am right now.
Oh, wow.
Well, Angela and I started the group as, to support families and parents at all levels. So I'm happy you're here. and, you know, continue to ask questions in the group and read some posts. And I think like in this, where you're at, where it's so new and it's so fresh. So congratulations. And I'm glad that you have that instinct to say, I know this is right. So that's, I think that intuitive knowing is just going to build for you. And it's going to build through facing your own fears and challenges. You know, Angela, you should probably mention that, you know, Angela does do some coaching, and you can get professional help, which you know, you may want to. You can also get, you know, non-professional help by just poking around in our group and other groups, but, you know, please feel comfortable and welcome, and, you know, to ask and to poke around on your journey. You know, for me, it seems to me like deschooling is where you're at, and just to embrace that, you know, to get back to just connecting. What, you know, ask yourself and your children, what do you actually really like doing? What are your passions? You know, what do they want to do more of? And you know, what's a good routine? I mean, do you all like sleeping later? Do you like you know, specific meal times? So I think it's really time just to regroup with your family around needs and wants and desires and passions.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Oh, I am. I'm excited about the road ahead.
Yay. Yeah, and man, you know what strikes me, like when I think about when I was like a new unschooler too, it's like, oh my gosh, what advice would you give to a new unschooler? And almost everyone has the same one. And it's like, you don't have to worry as much as you think that you're worrying. Like, it's gonna be okay. That's basically it. Yeah, and to give yourself grace. To me, like right underneath the worry, when we relax from the worry, we give ourselves the relief. That's where you get in touch with what you actually want to do. Oh, and what you want to do is like totally okay too. We don't need to like push it onto our kids, but like our inspiration is there for a reason too. I think a lot of the stuff that my kids end up being interested in stems from something that I was interested in, you know? So anyways.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, so
thank you so much, guys.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Hopefully we'll see you in the group and chatting more. And just so everybody knows, so I'm doing more world schooling and traveling, and we're blogging our adventure. So everyone is welcome to follow my daughter and I. We're aquaroselife.com. So I'm going to be expanding our blogging and expanding our travels. So we're always happy to have new followers and likes. So I'd be happy to have everyone check us out on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram. That's what we're up to. And I know, Angela, you're kicking off a fun new summer program. So you want to tell us a little bit about that? A little more?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm excited to talk to more parents over the summer because I usually work during the school year. So I have a lot more time right now, and I'm just about to put together information about that online, but you don't really need to like know the information. It's just like, hey, I'm here, reach out to me if you want to talk to me. I really enjoy talking to parents primarily about unschooling, but also spirituality. That's just like how I'm wired. And yeah, it's so much of a joy for me. Like it really gives me a lot that I offer these things on a sliding scale or by donation. So don't let like a price tag keep you away. It's really something that speaks to me that I enjoy doing. So yeah, you can find me at my Facebook, which is Angela Rose Young. You can find me on my website, angelaroseyoung.com, or Instagram at New Paradigm Parenting. And I think my website's probably the easiest place to find the link to just like schedule. You can just schedule a session. Like you can see my calendar on there and you can just schedule it. And it's a pay what you feel type of thing. But you can also find that on Facebook and stuff, just on the posts, and you can catch my vibe there. But yeah, if it resonates, oh my goodness, I'm excited. You. That's about it. Oh, it looks like we're a little frozen. I don't know if it's me or you, but that probably sums up our call this week. Thank you, Sam, for hopping on. I really appreciate it. I just feel like your story and what you're going through now is really, really useful and relatable to so many others. I'm excited to hear how it all evolves for you and your kids.
I'll keep you posted.
Yay. Keep us posted. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you both. And this is every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, midnight in the UK. Sorry, Sam. And
11
for our international friends. But we'll catch you next week. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.